the shadow behind the smile, covert, manipulation in relationships. At first, she seems perfect, charming, intelligent, empathetic, deeply attentive. She listens with care, offers thoughtful advice, and makes you feel understood in ways you've never experienced before. Friends admire her. Family embraces her. She appears to be everything you've ever wanted in a partner. The unseen erosion. But months later, you find yourself doubting your memory, questioning your sanity, and living in a constant state of emotional exhaustion. What happened? The answer lies in a disturbing psychological phenomenon: covert manipulation by women who appear nurturing and vulnerable, yet unconsciously weaponize their unresolved wounds. These women rarely reveal themselves through obvious abuse. Instead, they erode a man's confidence, boundaries, and identity through subtle psychological tactics that are harder to detect and even harder to escape. The shadow behind the smile. Psychologists often refer to this destructive force as the shadow, the unconscious darkness that some individuals carry and project onto those closest to them. Unlike overtly toxic individuals who are easy to identify, these women present as sensitive and loving, but underneath operate as emotional predators. Psychological transference. The key to their power is psychological transference. They offload their unresolved trauma, insecurities, and fears onto you. What feels like intimacy, her confiding her deepest wounds, may actually be a subtle way of downloading her chaos into your psyche. Without realizing it, you become the container for emotions, anxieties, and problems that were never yours to carry. Over time, her instability becomes your reality. You walk on eggshells, manage constant crises, and lose your sense of self in the process. The mechanisms of manipulation. 1. Projection and the matrix of false accusations. Dangerous women frequently project their flaws onto men. If she calls you selfish, emotionally unavailable, or controlling, she may actually be describing herself. This creates a projection matrix where every conversation turns into a defense against accusations that don't reflect reality. Slowly, you begin doubting your own character, apologizing for problems rooted in her psyche, not your behavior. 2. The weaponized victim. Perhaps the most insidious tactic is playing the victim by sharing stories of trauma and fragility. She activates your protective instincts, but her victimhood is often strategic. Boundaries become abandonment, criticism becomes persecution, and accountability becomes emotional abuse. The man who once felt like her savior eventually becomes cast as the villain. 3. Emotional parasites. Some women survive on constant emotional rescue. They present as wounded souls who could be amazing if only they healed. This awakens a man's rescuer complex, trapping him in a cycle of endless giving. But since healing would end the parasitic bond, genuine improvement never comes. The more you give, the weaker you become. More mechanisms of manipulation. 4. Mask controllers. To the outside world, she's graceful, kind, and adored. In private, she is critical, manipulative, and controlling. This dual persona leaves you questioning your sanity. Friends and family see only her mask, which isolates you further and makes your experiences seem unbelievable. 5. Chaos generators. Calm feels intolerable to these women, so they manufacture drama. Every day is a new crisis. Minor issues become catastrophic and emotional. Intensity substitutes for genuine intimacy. Living with such a partner keeps your nervous system in permanent overdrive. 6. Boundary violators. These women erode your boundaries slowly but systematically. Privacy becomes secrecy. Alone time is reframed as rejection. Every effort to maintain selfhood is painted as lack of love. Over time, you sacrifice friendships, hobbies, and independence to appease her until you barely recognize yourself. The deepest forms of manipulation. 7. Gaslighters. Through denial, selective memory, and rewriting history, gaslighters distort your reality until you trust their version more than your own. This tactic makes you dependent on them for truth, even when that truth contradicts your lived experience. 8. Emotional terrorists. By threatening abandonment, self-harm, or reputational destruction, these women weaponize your emotional investment. The message is simple: comply or face chaos. 9. Identity thieves. Over time, they reshape who you are by rewarding behaviors that serve their insecurities and punishing authentic self-expression. They mold you into someone unrecognizable, even to yourself. 10. Recovery saboteurs. If you attempt to grow, heal, or set boundaries, they will find ways to sabotage your progress. Why? Because your growth threatens the dysfunctional balance that keeps them in control. The psychology of colonization. These tactics are effective because emotional states are contagious. Through mirror neurons and unconscious mimicry, you begin internalizing her chaos as if it were your own. What feels like intimacy is actually psychological colonization. Her worldview becomes yours, her dysfunction becomes your reality. Worse still, the cycle of crisis and relief creates trauma bonds, an addictive attachment that feels like love, but is actually emotional dependency. The highs and lows, unpredictability, and intensity trick you into believing the bond is special when in fact it is manufactured manipulation. Warning signs you're in danger. Rapid intimacy acceleration. The relationship moves unnaturally fast. Isolation from support systems. Friends, family, and hobbies slowly fade away. Constant reality negotiation. Events are reinterpreted to suit her narrative. Emotional disproportionality. Extreme reactions to minor triggers. These signs indicate you are not in a relationship built on love, but in a psychological trap. Breaking free. Trust your instincts. Confusion, exhaustion, and constant guilt are not signs of love. Maintain boundaries. Even if she frames them as rejection. Reject the rescuer role. You cannot heal someone who refuses to heal themselves. Reclaim your identity. Revive friendships, passions, and practices that remind you who you are. Seek objective feedback from people outside her influence or from professionals who can ground your perspective. Conclusion. Not all women are dangerous, and those who use these tactics are often acting unconsciously from unhealed trauma. Yet intent does not erase impact. The truth is stark. Healthy love builds you up. It does not tear you down. A good partner takes responsibility for her emotional health, supports your growth, and creates stability rather than chaos. The most dangerous women, by contrast, use your empathy against you, making you weaker the more you try to love them. Real intimacy should feel safe, expansive, and energizing. If instead it feels draining, confusing, and destabilizing, it may not be love, it may be psychological manipulation disguised as care.